I asked right when I went on the air, 9 a.m. Eastern time, I said, who is going to be the first? I don't know who's going to be the first group to blame this on the Tea Party or whatever and make it political, but it didn't take long to find out. It was ABC News. Within 18 minutes of me saying that, ABC News and Brian Ross said this.
I want to go to Brian Ross here, because, Brian, you've been investigating the background of Jim Holmes here. You found something that might be significant.
There's a Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado page on the Colorado Tea Party site as well, talking about him joining the Tea Party last year. Now, we don't know if this is the same Jim Holmes, but it's Jim Holmes of Aurora, Colorado.
No, we don't know that. We just want to get the smear out there so that when people hear the actual news, it's already too late because it's sunk into their psyche.
Now, Jim Ross has been. I want to break in here for just a second. I've got some breaking news here. Might be important here. We're not really sure. Let me go to our chief investigator for ABC News. Let me go to our chief investigator of ABC News, who has been investigating who the killer is, who the shooter is. Mm-hmm. Brian. Yeah, let me translate. Yeah, I've been Googling, and I got some guys in the office here, some interns and stuff. They were running around. They've been looking at Facebook. We've been looking at all the names that are the same as the shooter. We found one interesting. We found a couple. We found a plumber. We found another guy. We found a guy who's just a 22-year-old student. That's no big deal. And what's funny is we found a Tea Party guy, and that's the one I want to talk about here. Now, we don't know. I mean, the plumber could be the killer too, because there's 22 or 28 guys with the same name here. But I want to zero in on the one guy here, and we got it off of Google, so we're pretty sure. We did a search for that name in Aurora, Colorado, and 22 or 28 names popped up, but this one has a Facebook page or a page on the Colorado Tea Party, and I found that important enough to have you now break into the coverage and give you something that, as you said, may or may not be important. Tea Party, Tea Party, Tea Party.
And let's translate it even further. And George, as the chief correspondent for ABC News, let me tell you how excited I was to find the words Tea Party associated with James Holmes.
I got to say, too, I would say...
Come on.
Again, this is as much speculation as Brian Ross, but I would say it's unlikely that you search for the name Brian Ross. James Holmes or Jim Holmes and come up with that. It seems like you'd probably... have to get to the point where you're searching for Jim Holmes and Tea Party to get to that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the page, which you can find after he highlighted it, you see that it hasn't been even updated in well over a year. I mean, this is not even it wasn't even an active web page. The guy signed up in 2011 and had posted one event in 2011, early 2011, and it hasn't been updated since.
By the way, so you know, in case you were listening to Brian Ross, the chief investigative reporter for ABC News, what Stu is saying here has no bearing whatsoever on the shooter and what happened, because that's not the same guy. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. ABC News now updating what's happened, and they say an earlier ABC News broadcast report suggested that a Jim Holmes of a Colorado Tea Party organization might be the suspect, but that report was incorrect. ABC News and Brian Ross apologized for the mistake and for disseminating information before it was properly vetted.
Well, you know what? It was a simple mistake to make, especially with somebody with the lack of experience that somebody would have being the chief investigative reporter of ABC News. You wouldn't expect that person to know, let's not go on the air with things that we haven't verified and we don't know that could smear or destroy or taint any kind of pool on that. Now, we do have to apologize for saying last hour we found out that the Chris Davis was brutally killed and murdered in his pool, and he was found face down in his pool. And it looks as though the killer is Brian Ross. Brian Ross has been arrested for the killing of Chris Davis.
Now, we just didn't know if that was the same Brian Ross.
We didn't know. Now we have more information that apparently is not the chief investigative reporter for ABC News, Brian Ross.
Yeah, an earlier Glenn Beck program broadcast report did suggest that Brian Holmes of ABC News might be the suspect. That report
Brian Ross.
Excuse me, Brian Ross. I apologize. Might be the suspect, but that report was incorrect. The Glenn Beck program and myself, Stu Bergier, apologize for that mistake and for disseminating information before it was properly vetted.
Do we have any other updates on Brian Ross? Because I think it's really good that we've cleared this up.
No more updates on that at this time. We do have other news. Obviously, it's not the shooting's not the only thing going on. This story, explicit photos and text messages to two girls have landed a man in jail on suspicion of sex-related charges. Oh my! Wow, I didn't even notice this before I started the story. Brian Ross was arrested at 5:35 and booked on suspicion of contacting a minor and arranging to meet with a minor via the internet.
Now, is that the same Brian Ross from ABC News?
We don't know. This could be important because we don't know if it's the same Brian Ross.
Now, we don't know if it's for sure the same person.
We do know that on March 13th, a 10-year-old girl received a text message from a man.
From Brian Ross?
From Brian Ross.
Oh,
he would later identify himself as Brian. He sent this is really disturbing.
Hang on just a second. I want to make sure that we've done some checking. Where'd you get this story?
I'm the chief investigator for this program, so I don't.
I know, but where did you get this story?
I Googled it.
Okay,
you Googled it, where is the original source of this story?
The original source? I didn't Google that much. I mean, jeez.
I mean, this story is coming from where?
Do?
Where is the story coming from?
The internet. Yeah. So,
okay. So I could Google this. I just want to make sure we've checked our story. You could independently. I could independently right now. I could Google what and find this story on the internet.
Brian Ross and sex-related charges. I just happen to be Googling that.
That or just Brian Ross?
I was Googling both.
Oh, you're Googling both. Okay.
Yeah, Brian Ross and sex-related charges.
Okay, and that story will pop up.
And that story
will
pop
pop
up.
You can independently verify this.
Yes,
then.
you can.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Let me independently verify.
Okay.
Pat, will you independently verify here? Because I want to make sure that we get this right. I would hate to do to Brian Ross what Brian Ross just did to the Tea Party.
Oh, you don't want to. So Brian Ross,
sex-related charges.
You
can also, if you want to get it related
charges, and then just hit enter.
Well, no, I would say if you want to add on to that 10-year-old, you can add on to sent the girl a face shot along with a photo of himself exposed. If you want to type that in,
I don't need all of that.
Okay, I'm just saying if you want to get more specific. Because I just happened to be searching for all those things with the name Brian Ross, and this story came up. And we can now confirm that it is Brian Ross who's responsible for this. We just don't know if it's the same Brian Ross who's the ABC reporter. And we're looking into that. But obviously, this may be important to the story.
Michael Kalowski.
Explicit photos and text messages to two girls. Yeah, I've got the story. It's
my gosh, I have it right here.
Is Brian Ross? Do we know if he's from Mentone?
How can we know?
We don't know.
We just know that we should
have a copy of all
you.
of his taxes. His tax return?
You know what? We don't. If we had that,
we know that. We do know. Let me tell you what we do know.
He may have committed some felony on his taxes, too.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Here's what we do know about Brian Ross. He's made an awful lot of money at ABC.
Oh, yeah.
He seems squeaky clean.
So, he can afford a cell phone to text 10-year-old girls.
Right.
It fits.
Do we know if he has Swiss bank accounts?
Oh,
we don't know.
We don't know, but we do know that he's made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he appears to be squeaky clean.
Yes, but he could be betting on or against America while at the same time texting 10-year-old girls.
Yeah, and here's the thing. A guy like Brian Ross, and again, we don't know if it's the Brian Ross, the ABC reporter.
It could be a different guy.
A guy like Brian Ross, who made a lot of money, probably could afford a high-priced texting plan so he could text both the 10-year-old and the 10-year-old's 13-year-old cousin with shots of himself.
We don't have any verification at all that this is important or this is the same Brian Ross. We have no verification whatsoever. We just felt it was important to break in with this news and talk about Brian Ross. And it is verified. Both Pat verified it. You can verify it.
Yeah.
That a Brian Ross, we don't know if it's the same, did go to jail on sex-related texting charges. And it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that the Brian Ross that we all know and love would would be texting naked pictures of himself to 10-year-olds.
Why would he do something like that if he did it?
We don't know
right, if he did it. I'm just saying if he did it.
But
why would he do
It's an interesting development, isn't it?
Shame on you, Brian Ross, if you did that.
The other thing is, I'd like to see about 12 years worth of Brian Ross's tax returns now. Now that I think about it, 1 or 2 years just isn't enough. I'd like to see going back about 12 years just so we know.
We don't know.
Because we don't know. He could have committed many felonies. And we don't know until we see those returns. I mean, is he betting against America? Is he texting 10-year-olds? Did he kill a guy in a pool? Apparently, we do know he did not.
We
not
don't know.
A Brian Ross did, but not the Brian Ross from ABC News. I wasn't there.
Were you there, Glenn?
No, I wasn't there.
No, you weren't there. So we do. I mean,
we don't know.
Do we have independent verification that we know that a Brian Ross is in jail for that murder of that person?
That is true. We know that.
Do we have any independent verification that they didn't switch identities?
We don't. How do we know that?
So maybe Brian Ross, who has the full global resources of ABC News, made it appear to be another Brian Ross. We don't know if that didn't happen.
And the only way we could know that is if we saw 12 years of his tax returns.
That's chilling.
Which we have not seen.
Which we have not seen. And why? Why,
Brian Ross?
Ask yourself.
Here's the thing that we should
want to know.
Here's the thing that we should do, and I'm talking to the Brian Ross at ABC News, not the killer that's behind bars, unless Brian Ross, with the resources of ABC, somehow or another switched identities. We don't know that at this point. Nobody has asked that question yet. And we also don't know if it's the same Brian Ross that was texting 10-year-olds. But I'm talking to the Brian Ross at ABC News. What you should do, Brian, is not worry about being first, not worry about your political agenda. What you should do is be accurate. That's something that they used to teach in journalism schools. It's something, in fact, that we insist on at the Blaze. Everybody makes a mistake. But I believe we would fire somebody who would do what you just did. Come on, as a journalist, not an opinion person, as a journalist, and break into this broadcast and say, we want you to know there's some news here that may be important. And in fact, as a was it Vanity Fair? One of them called me now as a media mogul or a media titan, I think they said. Because I'm building an empire, as a media mogul of a media empire, I would have fired George Stephanopoulos as well. I actually wouldn't have hired him in the first place, but I would have fired him as well for him not following up saying, did you just Google this, Brian, or how do you have this information? What exactly, what else besides you Googled Brian Ross, the name of the killer and Tea Party, what other evidence do you have that it's the same person? But you keep going, ABC News. You're doing a bang-up job. Wildly discredited. It's why you have a 21% trust rating in America.